Hey guys, this is Mr. Fitzgerald, and this is the video lesson regarding to the article I gave you today on the principles of emphasis and proportion. Alright, so we're talking about the principles of art or the principles of design. Remember, we're using both of those terms, and today we are talking about those two principles, emphasis and proportion. So just like last time, just like I'm going to from now on, I'm going to read you the questions that you're going to answer at the end of the information first, so that you can already have that in your head, and so that when you hear the information you can think about it, and you can pause the video if you want and do the questions, and then when you're done with the video you're basically done with homework. Alright, unless you want to just read the information and then go back and think about the questions, whichever one works for you. But here are the questions first. Alright, so first question is, you're thinking about what is emphasis. Okay, you're going to learn about this principle. So what is emphasis? You're going to define that. And then, what two things does using this principle allow an artist to do? Alright, so what two things does using emphasis allow you, the artist, to do in a work of art? Alright, so then the next question would be, what is proportion? Alright, so what is the principle proportion? And then how do artists use proportion? Alright, how would you and how would another artist use proportion in artwork? Alright, so think about those things. Alright, here we go. Emphasis. Alright, when people want to call attention to an important word in a sentence, like when you're taking notes, or when you're reading something and a teacher tells you, oh, this is important, remember this, they will underline it, or highlight it, or put a star. We do that in this class. I tell you to underline something or highlight something. When you want to remember something, when you're reading, you highlight it, underline it, put a star beside it, do something to let you know that that's important. Underlining a word makes that word stand out from the rest of the words in the message. It gives it emphasis. All right. Artists also use emphasis in their messages to viewers. Remember, we are talking about, and we will talk about how art is used to communicate things. All right, so this is what it's saying, that they use emphasis in their communications, in their artwork, when they communicate something to the viewers. In art, emphasis, all right, here you go, keyword. Okay, probably going to give you the definition. Emphasis is making an element or object in a work stand out. All right, so again, emphasis is making an element or an object in a work stand out. All right, the use of this principle helps the artist control what part of a work the viewer looks at first. Catch that? The use of this principle helps the artist control what part of a work the viewer looks at first. It also helps the artist control how long the viewer will spend looking at each of the different parts. All right, so there's those two things. You're actually using emphasis to control the first part of your artwork that the viewer looks at, and you're also controlling how much time do they spend looking at that object, looking at that part of your painting. You're using emphasis to control that. All right, so emphasis can be created by contrast, which is differences, making one thing different than the other, or extreme changes in an element. All right, that means different styles, different techniques, more detail, less detail, that kind of thing. So in the painting in figure 5.9, right underneath this column of information, several groups of figures are shown. All right, one of these groups seem more important than the other. Can you identify that group? Can you tell why it caught your attention? So it's a little muddy because it's black and white on your paper, and it's color in the books. So you're going to be looking at the differences between the figures. There's kind of some shadowy figures in the back, and the figures in the background are less detailed, but the ones in front, they're a lot brighter and they're highly detailed. So it's trying to tell you that there's a woman that looks like a crown is being put on her. It's kind of showing through the brightness of her and the high detail in her, and also the amount of the people gathering around her. that she is important. So emphasis. All right, so the principle of proportion. All right, have you ever tried on a piece of clothing and found that it made you look shorter or taller than you actually are? Perhaps the problem was one of proportion. Now, that's a pretty good illustration the book gives, but more think of putting on a shirt or a jacket or something that's just way too big for you or way too small for you. I mean, what if you're 6 foot tall, 170 pounds, and you put on an extra small, all right? It's not gonna be pretty, All right, what if you are, a young lady that's about, 5'1", 95 pounds, 100 pounds, and you put on a triple XL in men's big and tall, all right? It's gonna look crazy on you. All right, so that's proportion. Those are extreme cases, but proportion. It's too big for you. It's too small for you. It's too big for the painting. It's too small for the painting. All right, perhaps, like I said, perhaps the problem was one of proportion. In art, proportion is how parts of a work relate to each other and to the whole. All right. Now that's kind of vague. I really want you to think about the size. So maybe a definition more like it's how the size of parts of a work together. It's got to be about size or amount. Proportion. It's about size. Look at the painting in figure 510. It's right underneath this column of information here. Notice how the artist points out the main figures in the work by making them larger than the rest. All right, so we have this character, this Virgin Mary. We've seen her in other artwork. We'll see her in more. A lot of the artwork you'll see in the world is of Virgin Mary, and here is a relief, as a painting of her, and showing that she is important, in this faith by having her and the little child big, much bigger than everybody else. You have all these other people around her, all right, and they're a lot smaller, and she's big in the center. So that's telling you that she is important, all right. And proportion as an art principle is not limited to size, though. It's not limited to size. That's the main one we deal with. But elements such as colors can be used in different proportions. So it's kind of like if you use more of one color than another color, or a lot of bright colors and then a little bit of the dull color. All right, you're using, again, it's kind of amount, size. So you're using more of one color than another to prove a point or to communicate something. Elements such as color can be used in differing proportions. What is the key color in the work in figure 511? It's right beside this information here. What do you think was the artist's reason for using the color as he did? All right, so think about that. What color did they use the most? And maybe what does that color mean in our society? What does or what do we as humans think about when we see that color? So when we see a ton of that color, what kind of things are we going to think about? What message is it showing by using a lot of that color and not a lot of other colors, or none of other colors, but a lot of that one color? All right, so that is all the information. Now we're going to go back to those questions. 6th and 7th graders, remember, you just number your paper 1 and 2. There's only 2 questions. And the first one is, what is emphasis? And what 2 things does using this principle allow an artist to do? All right, so what is emphasis, the principle of emphasis? And what 2 things does using this principle allow an artist to do? And the second question, number 2, is what is proportion? All right, so what is proportion and how do artists use proportion? What is proportion and how do artists use proportion? All right, 6th and 7th graders, you're done. 8th graders, remember, you're not numbering 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and put the answer. You are writing in complete sentences, writing your answers in complete sentences and in paragraph form. So it sounds like a lot of work, but it's just actually less because you're not putting the numbers. Just complete sentences in paragraph form. And then I will see y'all tomorrow. Bye.